as I understand it, the New York Times broke it, and then the other two papers at that point was no longer not public.
War in their efforts to combat global terrorism. And I think if you're an average person out there, you look at this and say, well, yeah, you can dry up the money, and if you get at people this way, it's appropriate. Now, what disturbs me is that the way Doyle related the story is it sounds like the New York Times arbitrarily went ahead and sort of maybe broke their bond with the other news organizations. Were they part of the Times part of the negotiations with the story?
Oh, well, there was no agreement.
About those three newspapers, it was the New York Times, the LA Times, and the Wall Street Journal. But the Washington
Top journalists particularly who give the president the advice can't send jobs to him. I think that's an inconsistent couple of measures.
A sudden shift in the way the administration is describing maybe too sudden for either Americans or Iraqis to follow. But then if we're, in effect, we'd like to draw down a little bit, but expect troops to go back in. I think what that actually means is that we are likely to see a troop level roughly where we are, between 100,000 and 30,000 for the foreseeable future.
I'm cynical enough to think that the drawdown happens just before the elections. They were talking about here. One individual is they actually took this man out who was a civilian and bound him
Yeah, we don't
and
know
then
the facts.
shot him and put a rifle in his arm. Well, that's what it's being shot.
Between those 2 points of view, maintain our rule of law versus what, how on earth can we win a war?
And we can collateral just good versus evil when the rest of the world.
You're an Episcopalian, Tony. I'm an Episcopalian. What was your reaction?
Well, the Anglican Communion has obviously had a famous now struggle to keep its unity with representatives from the Southern Hemispheres largely being much more traditional in its values, and the European, particularly the British and the
Democrats to set withdrawal dates. Both were voted down in regard to the 2006 election.
In the Senate, especially, but in the House, there was a debate over whether the war is operational. Will the president step up and tell them to stop? We shall wait.
It's the appearance of doing something, and it will avoid a vote in the fall, and it will rev up the conservative base to come out and vote in November. And will there be any policy proposals coming out, any legislation coming out? So
What?
Suarez has our story.
The men indicted in Miami today were described by federal authorities as homegrown terrorists, as members of an Islamic army planning to destroy 5 government buildings in 4 U.S. cities and the Sears Tower in Chicago as well.
What we have is a situation where individuals here in America make plans to hurt Americans. They did take some overt acts. They did request materials. They did request what we did because we believe we have an obligation to prevent America from another attack here.
The 7 indicted include 5 U.S. citizens and 2 Haitian immigrants, 1 here illegally.
And destroy buildings by means of an explosive device. And conspiracy to levy war against the government of the United States.
All 7 were taken into custody yesterday when authorities swarmed a warehouse in Miami's Liberty City neighborhood. Predominantly poor African Americans, but they kept to themselves.
You just see their eyes. And they had the whole head wrapped up, just their eyes shut. And like they stand and go.
They would nod their head and say, some of the people say they speak to them, they just nod their head or something, and just keep their head straight. They was acting like they was in military training.
Of Al-Qaeda.
In actuality, he was working with the South Florida Joint Terrorism Task Force.
The government says the alleged ringleader of the group, Narcille Batiste, asked that informant during several meetings last year